revisiting my dreams with the king.
Welcome to the ride, a journey to your dreams. I'm your host, Johnnie King III Leroy, and this is the Revisit Your Dreams podcast. I am very excited. I have a very special guest today. This is someone who I know personally and someone who I've watched their career take leaps and bounds over the past couple of years. This is a very special individual. But before I get started and introduce it to you, I want to let you know that the Revisit Your Dreams podcast will air every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on the Revisit Your Dreams channel on youtube.com. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure that you like this episode and share it with someone. I'm sure that this individual is going to be sharing and dropping some gems and some jewels upon you that I know someone you know can benefit from, maybe even you. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel. My very special guest today is a multi-passionate creative whose journey took her from a 25 plus year career in PR and HR to a thriving as a commercial model, an actress, and an entrepreneur. She's a founder of Vinyo Sana, a wine and lifestyle event company, and she brings elegance, authenticity, and bold reinvention to everything she touches. Get ready to be inspired by a woman who's not just turning pages, she's writing a whole new chapter in her book of dreams. Please welcome to the show my very special guest, model, actress, entrepreneur, Miss India Monique. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely glad to have you. Absolutely glad to have you. You look great. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So I'd like to start off the show by telling our audience each individual that I'm interviewing on these episodes are individuals that I know personally. Some of them I know from a short period of time, short period of interaction, brief interaction. Other people that I know personally for long periods of time, family members or longtime friends, co-workers, things like that. So I'd like to give the idea and the audience an idea of how I know Miss India Monique. We both attended the same university in college and Tennessee State University. And while our interactions weren't lengthy, we had just a platonic friendship and spend time just as college students, college kids, just kicking it in on the weekends, sometimes occasionally, and then just at different social events. And for the most part, that's how my relationship with India, for what I recall. India, do you have any feedback, or do you have anything else that you recall that I might not be recalling? It was like 30
Yeah, we were the best class, that freshman class in '92,
That's right.
the class. Yeah, so it's
Indeed.
been a long time.
It's
We've
been a
known each
long
other for a
time.
long time.
We have. And, I think if you look at Miss India Monique, I mean, I'm just gonna take a little bit of credit. I got grades, but we still look good for our age. You know what I'm saying? Still look good. Anyway,
You
all right.
do that. You do.
No, that you do. That you do. Miss India, we're gonna go ahead and get started. As a proud graduate of an HBCU, what did your experience at Tennessee State University mean to you, and how has that experience shaped and mold who India has become today?
Well, so I really feel that my time at Tennessee State, I wouldn't have chosen another university. I am so glad that that is where I landed. And initially, it wasn't going to go that way. I actually did not apply to Tennessee State until late April of my senior year. When the recruiter, Mr. Clark, came to my high school in Tennessee, in Chattanooga, and I was one of the last students leaving out of the cafeteria. He was like, "Young lady, what are you doing, after you graduate?" And I'm like, "I don't know. And he said, "You should consider Tennessee State." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I thought about the Air Force and some other things, but, I just didn't really know. I didn't really have real direction or guidance, to be quite honest. And so, Mr. Clark encouraged me to do it. And I took the application, I applied. Again, that was like late April. It was almost graduation time, and I got accepted. and then went in the summer, to do when they had like a incoming freshman weekend where you do testing and things like that, and I just couldn't believe it, and I was. Every time I would see Mr. Clark on that campus, I would always thank him. I'm talking about from freshman year all the way until I graduated. And I'm like, if it were not for you, I don't know what I would have done. And I was so grateful. I feel like Tennessee State not only prepared me for the marketplace and what was to come, but I was so far, I feel, ahead of some of my peers and colleagues once I got into the workforce. I think people will sometimes maybe downgrade or think that HBCUs are lesser than other universities. And that was not the case. When I say I felt prepared, I was prepared. And I went on to have a wonderful career where I was able to be at tables, sometimes as the only Black person, period. And I felt that everything that I learned at Tennessee State prepared me to be at those tables.
That's amazing. To that perspective of it, because I've asked that question to other people before, and there's a very variety of answers that I get. But you saying that you felt prepared, that Tennessee State University prepared you, an HBCU prepared you. I like that because you're right. A lot of times the thought process is that an HBCU, while it might be a good collegiate experience from a growth perspective, from
Hmm.
an experience perspective, but maybe not preparation for life outside of college, life, in the
Oh,
corporate
yeah.
world. And I felt the same way. I mean, in the circles that I involved myself in jobs that I had when I graduated from Tennessee State University, same way. I felt prepared. I didn't feel out of place. I didn't feel like I wasn't ready for everything that was coming to me. So
Absolutely.
we
Yeah. And I
it's
even
mutual. Go
had,
ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. I even had professors. I remember some key things, sharing with us students while we were in class that, these are the things that you have to do as Black students. This is what, or as a Black professional entering the marketplace, this is what you're going to have to do. There are things, of course, that our parents or our family, our villages would, say to us throughout life to prepare us, right, for this world. But I had professors that would, just be very brutally honest, if you will, and would say, hey, you're going to have to get in there and work 150% on top of what you might see some of your other colleagues doing. And you're going to have to do this. And you need to know these
You
things
may have
to
to
prepare you to
pause.
get
I don't
there.
know if you can hear me if you're still talking. Okay,
I
sorry.
can hear
It
you.
paused. It paused on my end for a while. So if you paused after you stopped talking and you didn't hear me, that's okay because I can cut out that pause.
Okay.
I was it. Yours was paused on my end, and I figured you were still talking, so I just was
Oh, was it?
being
Yeah, I
still and being
was.
quiet. All right, so let's go back to life as a young girl growing up in Chattanooga. What were some of young India's biggest dreams then?
So my childhood was a little different. I used to think that it was a disadvantage to me, but as I've gotten older, there are actually a lot of advantages to the hardships, I guess, of my childhood. So, yeah, I am from Chattanooga. My mother is from Chattanooga, and her mother is from
Hmm.
Chattanooga. But my mother met my father when he was visiting his parents who lived in Chattanooga, but my father lived in New York. So my parents got together and my mother moved to New York with him. So I was born in Chattanooga, but I spent some time as a young child in New York. And believe it or not, I actually have a lot of very vivid memories of the time there. And I would always wonder why, because some people say, well, there's no way you can remember something when you were 3. And it would astonish my father when I would tell him something. And he's like, oh my God, I cannot believe that you remember that. But I'm bringing all that up because whenever my mom would take us back to Chattanooga, even as a 3 year old, 4 year old, I knew that it was too small for me. And I'm like, no, I want to go back to New York, or I want to, go back to California, because we lived in Inglewood as well. I was my mother's only child for my first almost 9 years of my life. It was just me and her. And, with moving from New York, we were in the South Bronx. Then we went to Inglewood because my parents broke up, and my mom moved to California to stay with her best friend, and we lived out there for a bit. And then we always come back to Chattanooga because that was home. And so I always picked up little things from everywhere that I have lived. So I like to say that I was born in Tennessee, but I was globally raised, because even in my adulthood, I became an adult nomad. I have lived everywhere, and that is, back then again. I thought that it was to my disadvantage, right? Because I was shuffled, and even when I lived when I was consistently in Chattanooga, I was shuffled around to different family members. I lived with a lot of different family members. And, I again thought that that was something that I was being punished for whatever reason. I couldn't live with my mom the way that I wanted to. But I was literally raised by a village, and I picked up bits and pieces from each of those households that I lived in. And it really did shape the woman that I am today. Chattanooga will always be home for me. Always. As I stated, my mother's family is there, and throughout the years we've had a lot of loss, so I don't have as many family members there as I did before. But there were so many gems that I have taken away from growing up in a small town, but then also having exposure to bigger cities, and being able to, because I started traveling when I was 3 or 4, so that's in my blood. And and I'm very fortunate with that. But my time there, I haven't lived there since I was 17, because once I had to break out, I had to go. And it was nothing against Chat, but I knew that there was greater for me, and I had to go explore the world. But I love going back there to visit now as an adult. And when I had children, it was important for me to send my kids back there every summer. So when my oldest was 4, and my son, just 2 years behind her, they started going to Chat on their own. Like, I would take them there, drop them off, and they would stay for a couple of weeks, because I wanted them to get some of those little nuggets that I had as a kid. I wanted them to go to Rock City. I wanted them to, know what it was like to go buy a frozen cup, or some people call them flips, or I wanted them to experience the Candy Lady
Yes.
house and all of those things, right? And they did. And they got to be around family and other cousins. So that was important to me. And so when I think about Chattanooga, I reflect back to those times when, I had those family gatherings, those cookouts, those barbecues, being around all my cousins and things like that. And it's definitely, childhood wasn't as easy as, maybe some others, but there were so many different things that I take away from it now that I am so grateful and appreciative of, and all the friendships and things that I made through my time there. But Chattanooga will always be home for forever.
Did growing up in Chattanooga, being that it is a small, it compared to some cities in Tennessee, it's a bigger city, but compared to the big cities
Right.
in Tennessee, still a smaller city. Um, yeah,
Absolutely.
and growing up there, what type of things were you exposed to as a kid that um, made you want to branch out and do maybe some of the things that you are doing now?
Mm. Yeah. So actually, when I was, I don't know, maybe about 6 or 7. My aunt would always encourage me. This one particular aunt would always encourage me to sing and dance. So Annie was out back then. And little known fact, My mom actually took me to audition for Annie on Broadway in New York.
Wow.
And I didn't make it, but the fact that I had that experience, right? So when I was younger, my aunt would always encourage me to sing, all the Annie songs. So I was a little kid or the little cousin in front of all the adults and singing and acting, and I always did those things. And then when I was in seventh grade or sixth grade, actually, I had the opportunity to audition for an interview, I guess, for the Chattanooga School for the Arts and Sciences. They were about to open up this new school. The principal actually came from New York to start the school there. And it was a school that was going to be kind of based on sort of like remember the television show Fame. So it was sort of based on that. So you had your arts and your STEM and things like that that you could major in, if you will, while you were in middle school. And the school initially started with only seventh and eighth grade, and then I think fifth and sixth grade, and each year it went a grade up and a grade down. So I was there for 3 years. I didn't graduate there 'cause I was a kind of crazy teenager. I went through a period of rebellion, but that is where I majored in drama, and my drama teacher, Miss Duffy, I will never forget Miss Duffy. She encouraged me to really stretch myself, and I did. I did, and you know what? I just thought of something. So Miss Duffy was definitely very pivotal in my life when it came to theater. But when I was in the third grade, my third grade teacher, Marion Thurman, was the first person to introduce me to poetry. And she asked me to read a poem, Trees by Joyce Kilmer, for my third grade graduation. And that actually planted the seed.
Wow. You have, I mean, going through a situation where your life in Chattanooga is fluctuates. Meaning, you said that you talked about moving around from house to house, but then you have these
Yes,
constants where there's someone in school who's motivating you and encouraging you and pushing you. So even though your family members are like just providing your daily survival, for you and shifting you from place to place as the needs permit, and the circumstances change. There are some constants, it
right.
sounds like, in your life outside of your household that have helped push you to where you are right now, like gave you the inspiration and the motivation to pursue some of the creative things in your life. Like, it's got to be challenging to be a young kid and being put in different households, throughout those years. But something inside
Absolutely.
of you and something outside of you that was inspiring you and motivated you kept you going to the tune of, I'm not going to allow these circumstances to be the reason why I don't break out of Chattanooga and pursue things that I see and I envision for myself. I like that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I always knew that I wanted more. And like many children in this country that grow up in, unforeseen circumstances, disadvantaged circumstances, school becomes a
Hmm.
refuge. And school was a refuge for me. Um, Tennessee State was a refuge for me because I felt like my life started when I left for college. Because I was shuffled around so much and I didn't have like that consistent, I'm in the house with my parents. I never had that. So I didn't know what that was like. I was in and out of the home with my mom. And I always felt unloved, for that reason. So, there were a lot of things that I could have taken away from that. And I could have, become this, just disgruntled and bitter person. But I decided that I knew I wanted better. And my cousins and my family can tell you, the one thing that I always said, yeah, when I graduate, I'm leaving Chattanooga and I'll see you guys, at some other point. And it wasn't a dig towards the family, but they knew. They all knew. They were like, yeah, she's leaving and she's not going to come back. So, but that was childhood. And I always have to bring Atlanta into it as well, because my father, his family, they relocated from New York to Atlanta in like 1980, 1979, 1980. So every summer, regardless of who house I was in or, where I was in chat, my mom put me on a Greyhound and I rode the bus to Atlanta. And I was always with my father's family. So I am very grateful that I had the opportunity to be with both of my families and experience that. So I've always called Atlanta home because I felt like I grew up here as
I
well.
think it gets sound like it gives you a more well-rounded experience, even though half of it was, maybe with your mom, half of it with your dad, or periods of time with different family members. Gives you a more well-rounded life experience. As an adult, you could see it and value that perspective, as opposed to maybe as a child, it kind of feels like being shuffled around a little bit. But when you look back on your life, you're like, okay, I picked up this from that experience. I picked up this from that experience. I picked up
Oh,
this from living over
absolutely.
there. You know,
Absolutely.
um, like many of us, like we're seasoned veterans of life just because you talked about all the different changes and fluctuations and circumstances. So that makes us veterans. Like, you know, we didn't just end up here without going through something. You spent 25 years pursuing a corporate path. Um, Looking back on your time in the corporate world, would you describe your current success in fashion and entertainment as a complete pivot from your work in the corporate world, or might it be a kind of broad extension of what you've done in the past corporately?
So that is a wonderful question. And it is a question that I actually recently spoke to someone about. So, with all of my experience in public relations, and when I say that I worked in human resources, I was on the good side of human resources. I wasn't on the policy side, I was on the people side. So, I dealt with all things employee and leaders, right? So it meant that talent development and performance management, training, DEI, which is a buzzword today, but I worked in all of that. Every skill, every competency that I picked up and learned over my entire tenure, I'm able to transfer into what I do today. And I didn't recognize that initially. And then one day when because I do research on everything and I'm always going to take training and learn. And even though I had, when I was at Tennessee State, my minor was theater. And even though I had been in that space before, it had been a long time, right? So I enrolled myself into some acting classes and things like that. But then I started looking, hey, wait a minute. Yeah, I can transfer this set of skills that I learned when I was doing that, or or actually leaning back on some skills and utilizing them in the moment. And so that's really important. And I think if people, regardless if you're trying to make a transition from one industry to the next or a total career change, you can leverage all of the skills that you've learned throughout your life, really, and you could leverage them in what you want to do today. Because really it's a buildup. It's a buildup to what you're supposed to be doing now.
Absolutely, it definitely is. Using your past experiences, your career path, your job. Like if you have a goal to be an entrepreneur, if you have a goal to pursue a creative venture, or produce something, create something that is outside of your corporate career path. What she's saying is you can still use your experience in your corporate career path in jobs that you've had in the past, even if it wasn't a high profile job, even if it was a lower level, line level job, hourly job. There's something of value that you can get and
Absolutely.
that you can take from those experiences to utilize to push for yourself, for your dreams, for things that you want to do. And I think that's important to realize and recognize, and not so that when you go clock into that job, or even if you don't clock in, you just show up because you're a manager, what have you. When you show up on that job, as challenging as it might be, as frustrating as it might be at times, sometimes you don't even feel like going there and putting forth those 8 to 10 hours for that person, for that individual, for that company, even
Hmm.
for the dollar amount you might be paid. It might be like, I don't feel like doing this today, right? But realizing that if you have a goal beyond that job, you can utilize the experience from that job to help train you or prepare you for what you want to do outside,
Yes.
and use that job as a stepping stone to get to where you want to go, as opposed to it being a roadblock to where you want to go.
Absolutely true.
And we're going to switch a little bit because now we're talking a little bit more about you and what you're currently doing. In many cases, actors, models, entertainers have experienced some unique circumstances in life that have helped to shape who they've become in their career. You just talk about some of those experiences in your life. Other than maybe some of the things that you did mention, um, was there something that transpired in your life that gave you the boldness to represent as fly and as elegant as you do? And I'm saying fly because you use India fly in some of your social media handles,
Yeah.
and so the way that you dressed and some of the imagery in your model shots is actually just a very fly, sophisticated look. So what transpired in life that maybe pulled that boldness out of you to represent yourself in that way in these images in what you do in the entertainment world?
Sure. So first of all, I've always been
Oh,
fly. Let's
that's
get that
true.
straight.
I will attest. As far as I've known her,
Um,
she always has been.
no, but you know, I have a longer version. I have a shorter version. I'm going to move with
All
the
right.
shorter version. In 2020, when the world was shut down, there were a lot of things happening to a lot of people, right? And that May, my mother had to make probably what was the hardest phone call she ever had to make, or conversation that she had to have. And it was the conversation of her telling me first, her oldest child, that she had terminal cancer. And so she when she found out, she spoke with her sister first, and then they came up with the plan to tell each one of her kids separately. And so she came to me and she said, well, the doctor said that you need to take over everything. And so that, because I am who I am and my mom knew who I was, I'm very direct. I'm to the point. I will, get in and I'll get the job done. So when that happened, I did exactly that. I got power of attorney. I took over everything, but my life started changing. I didn't recognize it in the moment, but my life forever changed, because from that time until the following May of 21, which is when she passed. She survived 1 full year after the time they told her that she had terminal cancer. But I documented every doctor's appointment, right? Because I went taking notes, making sure that, she was doing what she was supposed to do, that she was eating and things like this. So I didn't realize that I was actually documenting her death,
Mm.
right? Till I went back into my notes and I'm just like, oh my God. And I could see, how things had progressed over that year. But my life changed when one particular time when I was with my mom. She was really sick at that point. Hospice had came in, and I had to bathe my mom. And I've actually never told this story out loud. Close friends have heard this, but when I knew my mom was very small. My mom was always very petite and things like that. Are you able to hear me,
I can hear you.
Johnny? Okay, sorry. But I knew my mom was always very petite. But when I had to bathe her, I it gave me a lens to what cancer really does to the body. It's one thing for someone to have clothes on, right? And you see, but then you really see the devastation that it does. And I couldn't cry, and I wanted to wail, but I couldn't because I didn't want to startle her and I didn't want to make her feel bad. But that day, it was that day when something in me was like, you have to live your life unapologetically, and you have to do everything that you want to do. You cannot leave this earth without doing the things that you want to do. And I said that to myself that day. And it started a progression with me. My mom passed, all those things happened. But that year in 21, when my mom passed, I had five other people, some of them, most of them immediate family, they passed as well. So it was just devastation after devastation. It just wouldn't end. And I found myself at one point, I'm like, I honestly don't know what to do. All I could do was pray and try to understand why we as a family were going through these things, but why so much was impacting me. And then, but I still had to be a mom, right? I still had to show up and go to work. I still had to do those things, but I was like, this something has to change. So it was that during that moment where I started branching out a little bit more and wanting to be better and live my life better on my terms. And I said, I actually don't care who says what. I'm about to live, because when you see that up close in your face like that, if something in your life doesn't change you for the better or bring something out of you to help you get to where you need to be, then I'm not going to say something is wrong with you, but something is wrong with you, because that was definitely life changing. And no one knew that. I wasn't really on social media. I took myself off because I could not focus on that. I had to be in that moment. And then just not even 2 years prior, I had lost my dad unexpectedly. So so those things, helped me really become what you see now. She was always here, but I stepped out a little bit more and decided that I didn't want to miss an opportunity ever, because my mom missed a lot of opportunities. She died too young. She missed a lot of opportunities, and I just said no. I can't. I have to live my life.
This episode is called Dreams Are Ageless, but your time is now. So exactly what she's saying right here is, this question and the response to this question is kind of related to this topic. Um, you allowed yourself to be inspired to some degree by the desire not to leave this earth with regret, is what it sounds like. And I relate to that tremendously. I hope if you're listening and you're watching, that's one of the gems and the nuggets that I was talking about. That if you share this with someone, they might be able to hear what Miss India has just said and relate exactly to that. They may be in that place in their life right at this very moment. I kind of experienced a similar thing in 2020. I kind of had a really tough battle with COVID. Maybe not as tough as some people, but I was in the hospital for several days, feeling like I was going to die. Like, I can't catch my breath. I can't breathe. I don't know what's going on. 4 or 5 days, every breath felt like it was my last breath. So I know that was my moment. Probably the reason why we're doing this podcast right now, why I'm doing this, is because that was a moment that I had that said, I don't want to leave this earth without accomplishing the things that I know God put me here to do. And this is one of those things, I believe, to inspire, encourage, and motivate people, and help bring other people to the forefront like yourself to also help me push that message to people. So, man, I relate to that, and I thank you for sharing that. It sounds like you had some challenging times in your youth and your young adulthood, even your older adulthood, taking care of parents. But again, these are the things; those are circumstances. They shouldn't be roadblocks. Find a way to allow them to be fuel to your goals and your dreams, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Um,
Because it's not about what happens, it's really about how you react, and then what you're going to do based on that.
Absolutely, absolutely. You recently finished shooting a couple of episodes, pilot episodes for a Bravo Network's TV reality show called Below Deck Down Under. Tell us, you've been posting some things on social media about that experience. Tell us more about that experience.
Yeah, so it was actually Below Deck Down Under season 3. And yeah, I was offered the opportunity to be on the show last year. In fact, when I was leaving a mutual friend of ours, I was leaving his birthday party in Nashville, driving back to Atlanta last year in January. I received a phone call while I was driving, and it was about the show. And someone was inviting me, to see if I would be interested in that opportunity. Now, I have to say that just a few months prior to that, I actually was laid off from my corporate job. So I had been laid off at that point for about, 3 months. And so I'm like, let me think about it, because I just wasn't sure if that was something that I should do. And I talked it over with my one of my aunts, and I prayed about it. I'm like, Lord, if this is something I need to do, I really need you to give me peace about making the decision to say yes. And and if it's not for me, I will not do it. And obviously the decision was yes. And I had a short window to get my things together because I actually got on due to someone pulling out.
Oh wow. Okay. So preparation meets
So
opportunity.
yes. So because someone pulled out, that's when a friend of mine was like, "Hey, I know you're laid off, but is this something that you would consider?" So I did, and I was able to get things done very quickly. Which I'm like, wow, you never see that happen like that. It was definitely God. Things just fell in line, and about 4 or 5 weeks later, I was flying to Qatar, then over to Seychelles, which Seychelles has always been my dream trip. Like I have wanted to go there since I was at Tennessee State, and so I'm like, okay, that had a wonderful experience with it. Absolutely wonderful experience. And filming and all, I mean, mic'd up almost 24/7, except when you're showering and sleep. But you get used to the cameras being on you all the time, right? Or being around you. So it was really dope. I would not change that experience for anything. I had a lot of fun doing it with the ladies and the crew. Everybody was so nice, and then just being in Seychelles and taking that
Yeah.
in was an experience in
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah. Does it has that episode aired, or is it due to air at some point in the future?
Yeah, it actually did air. That's why you saw me posting it a lot, because I was finally able to do that. So we filmed that last year in February, and I couldn't say anything about it. I did post a couple of pictures last year that I was in Seychelles, but I didn't say anything about why I was in Seychelles. And people pretty much forgot, that I posted those pictures because I reposted some of those same ones. But yeah, so that's why you saw me doing a lot of the posting, because the episodes aired. So it's Below Deck Down Under season 3, episodes 5 and 6 that I appear
That's
on.
amazing. You got me for sure because I saw those posts that you were in Seychelles, and I was like, oh, okay, her dream of going to Seychelles, cool. He's taking some pictures. Oh, those are cool pictures. All right. And then months later, I'm like, where are all these model pictures coming? She was at what? TV what? And me
Yeah,
being a creative, I'm like, okay, she got me. She, I'll put two and two together. Like, okay, she was probably there doing this the whole time, but she couldn't say anything. So I
that's
thought
right.
that's pretty dope. You were clever the way you played that. You needed to play it that way, probably by your contract, but but it was
Yeah.
but it was clever from a social position the way you played it. Over the past year and a half, we talked about some of the social media posts that you've been making. I follow you, of course, on Facebook, Instagram, but I'm sure you're on other platforms, and you've been making posts on those platforms. Some very bold, slightly provocative fashion photos. Your most recent post, the couched spread. I thought those images are amazing. I thought that your boldness is evident, your fearlessness is evident in you taking those photos. But take us through your mentality of preparing to take those kind of photos and to get the shot right, like so to speak. Take us through your mentality of preparing to do that.
Yeah. So what we mentioned earlier about being able to transfer your skills from, maybe what you did before to what you're doing now. So in my roles in corporate, especially my last two roles, I was a senior leader, and with that, came a certain way that I carried myself, right? In terms of being bold when going before. I worked with the C
Mhm.
suite. So I had to have a bold position or disposition, I should say, going in, speaking to these, senior executives and the CEOs, and being able to garner their
Mhm.
attention, right? So I came with a certain boldness in those rooms and in those spaces. And so when I go on a photo shoot, and I've seen my progression from the very first professional photo shoot that I did, when I said I'm going to do modeling, this is what I want to do. I can look at those pictures, which are really dope, they're really good, but then I can look at maybe my last photo shoot and I'm like, wow, she has grown tremendously. Like, look at the difference. So when I go in with a photographer, one, I'm always going to bring my top notch professionalism. I'm always going to bring it because that's just who I am. And in working with them and making sure that we're creating something together, because it's not just about me. So I'm always a collaborative in corporate. I'm always a collaborative. I did it then, and so I'm bringing that over into this space, making sure that I'm hearing you and what you want, and you're hearing me, and we're collaborating together, right? So when I go into that photo shoot, any any doubts that try to creep up in my mind, because it happens, right? The enemy's always trying to be in your head. Any doubts, any things that are trying to stifle the creative energy, I make it leave. I force it to go, because you don't have any space
Mhm.
here right now. And I come in and I'm actually a different person when I walk in there. I change my entire disposition in how I'm presenting, so that even if it's the same photo shoot but it's four looks, you would never know. You might think those are totally different photo shoots. No, it's the same photo shoot, but I'm just making sure that I give what I'm giving in that moment, right? And that I am making sure that what the photographer is seeing behind the lens is, we have that synergy. That's the word I'm looking for. That synergy is there, right? And that we're giving each other and we're feeding off of each other, because I feed off of the photographer, to
Yeah.
be quite honest. And he or she is probably feeding off of me, but making sure that we have that synergy and that connection, and that we're able to create this body of work. And you're talking about bold. It's about to get real bold.
I can't wait.
I'm like, I don't think they're ready. I don't
I
think they're ready, because yeah, it's about to
I
be
can't
really
wait,
bold.
and I encourage you to keep pushing as far as you want to go with that, because it is very inspirational. I know, to me and to other people who are creatives, to other people who have a bold vision for themselves. It might not be in fashion or modeling or taking pictures like you take, but it could be some creative idea or business venture or invention that is, a concept we've never heard or seen, and it might take a level of boldness just to put the idea out there to the public. Like, I've never, but um,
Yeah, for
I
sure.
appreciate your boldness, because I know for a fact that when you make posts on Facebook, and I'm just talking, of course, people, audiences is watching. If you follow India Monique on social media, you'll end up finding out. But um, I know that at least the people that follow you on Facebook that went to Tennessee State University, our peers, I can tell by their comments on your posts that you are inspiring people with your boldness. You're inspiring people with your willingness to um, put out something that other people might initially look at and put a negative stamp on it, and then secondarily might look at it and say, "Who does she think she is?" And at the
Right.
end of the day, she's telling you who she is. She's someone who is not going to leave this earth with any regrets, and that's what I. That's what we want you to do. That's what we want you to get. Is that no matter what, how bold it's going to get, how bold it's going to shock people, if it does. One thing you need to know is that Your dreams are important to you, and it doesn't matter what other people think, how other people react. You got to finalize.
That's
You
right.
got to finish the destination for you and for your family at the end of the day.
That's absolutely right. And, in terms of like any negativity, you know, when you go through something like watching your parent, and really it was both of my parents, suddenly losing my father and watching my mother go through such a devastating sickness. And excuse me, I don't give a damn what anybody else has to say about anything that I do because they don't live my life. And I am living my life as long as God gives me breath. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do the things that I know He has put out. This is His plan for me because if it was up to me, I would still be living in Houston, working at what I felt like was my dream job. It was definitely my retirement job. I was happy at Chevron, making very good money, moving all around the world for them. And when he told me to step away and to move back to Atlanta, I was like, what?
What we gonna do here?
But I was obedient and I did it. And a year after I moved back home, my father suddenly passed. But do you know the time that I got to spend with my dad in that year I moved back to Atlanta? The time my kids got to be with my father, and then the fact that I was back on this side of the US when my mom got sick. I could take her to chemo. I could be there. So when God speaks, you better listen because I could have been disobedient. Like I just built my dream home in Houston. I moved back from Kazakhstan and I lived in New Orleans and I came back. I built my dream home. I'm staying in Houston because everybody that know me. I love me some Houston. That is my second home. I love Houston. We'll always go back to Houston. And my kids grew up in Houston. But God said, go. He said, go back home. And I did it. I didn't know what I was walking into because, and I was leaving my dream. I thought I was going to retire from Chevron. I had been there 11 years.
Sometimes you got to do that and not look back either. Like it's
You
hard.
got,
It's hard
that's
not to
right.
look back, but it's hard not to want to go back. It's hard not to, in the face of trial, want to say, "I'm going back to Houston because that's my safe place. That's my haven. That's where I feel comfortable." And you had to learn how to
Right.
be comfortable with being uncomfortable and just being obedient and just going and doing.
That
You know,
just doing it. So I have a lot of ladies that will, ladies and some men that will DM me and talk about what you just mentioned. Like you are so inspiring. You're going after your dreams. You're doing this. You're doing that. They don't know all the things that have happened in the on the back end and how I got here. Some people just think, oh, she just woke up one day and decided I'm gonna model. No, baby, I got laid off. And I said, you know what? While I'm sitting here looking for a job on LinkedIn for 9 hours a day, let me go do some test
hmm
shots and stuff. And it's not ironic by coincidence that I look for a job for almost 9 months and I get two interviews and I am a SME in my area of HR. I mean, it is what it is. I come with a lot of
hmm
receipts and nobody would give me a chance. That's because God was like, no, that's not where you are anymore. And that took me a minute because that played with
yeah.
my mental for a long
It
time.
can. You go to school for a long time and you build a career, and that career is providing for you and your family for years and allowing you to do the things that you need to do and raise your kids. And then all of a sudden it gets cut down, and you're having to rely
Yes.
on faith that God's doing the right thing. I'm just going to be obedient. You know,
What you said,
and
absolutely.
then after that, at some point you pick up the motivation to pursue life from that point on your own. That's where the boldness comes in. Like, I'm here now, I'm obedient, and I see opportunity because of things like you're applying for hours and hours, trying to get jobs. Those opportunities are not coming in. but you still saw opportunity. You didn't say that this job, these applications, these resumes that I'm sending, that's what's going to
Right.
provide my future. You're like, my future is right here and right here. I'm going to go ahead and
Yep.
produce that. So man, that's why you are inspiring people. You might be inspiring people, some people just from the looks of your imagery and the boldness, but there's other people who now, after hearing this, are inspired by your backstory and the fact that despite what they may have seen on the outside, now they know a little bit more, and that's even more encouraging, because just to see somebody take a bold act and stand in front of the camera and present themselves in the way that you presented yourself, that's bold. That in itself is inspiring. But when you hear someone's backstory and how they got there, I have a whole nother newfound level of respect for your past history, and I'm doubly inspired by that. So thank you for being here and sharing with us.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. Thank you so much.
Knowing what you know now about life and about yourself, India, what advice would you give to 18-year-old India?
Oh, I would tell her. So I actually have conversations with her sometimes, and I talk to her, but I would tell her to not allow any obstacles get in front of her and delay the things that she knows she wants to do, because the 18-year-old India was scared. She didn't know like what her path in life was going to be, but she did take a step forward, right? And she tried to move ahead, made a lot of mistakes, but that's a part of learning and growing. But I would tell her, hey, it is going to be okay. You have everything in you. God has put everything in you for you to succeed and make it. So don't have any doubts on that. Just go for it and move towards the things that you know that you want for your life, your dreams and your goals. Because sometimes you have dream killers. Especially when you're young. That's why I always try to encourage my children or nieces and nephews, the younger people, in things that they want to do, because you don't know if you're hurting the seed that's in
Mhm.
them, right? So be careful in the things that you speak over their lives. So I always encourage them, go for it, do it. Even if it's something that might seem like a hobby to them, you never know where that hobby might take
Yeah.
them, right? Just let them explore. That's what life is. And more so now today, you see that than maybe when we were 18 and 19-year olds, right? You have content creators that are in high school and right out of high school, and they're trying to make that their career.
Hmm.
Why not? So I try to encourage them and encourage that 18-year-old me, because the 18-year-old, the 4-year-old, the 10-year-old me, still that healing is going on,
Yeah.
right? We're still healing, and because we should continue to heal and evolve every day of our lives. That
Yeah.
never stops. So I love on that 4-year-old, that 10-year-old, and that 18-year-old India, and let them know that what, this life on this side, like, I'm so happy that I made it through all the things and the hardships that I've been through in my life, because regardless if I'm not working in that corporate job that I felt was my stability, and God had to show me that,
Yeah.
no, it's not.
Yeah.
I am. And I am so grateful. I'm here, haven't missed a
You
beat.
have it.
Haven't missed a beat, people. Haven't worked. I've been laid off for 16 months. My mortgage paid, my car note paid. God is faithful.
Faithful, faithful. Follow your passion, follow your dreams, and rely on the faith that you've been properly positioned. And I saw you make a post about that recently about being positioned. You've been properly positioned with the skills and the gifts and the talents that He's embedded in you to pursue and be successful in those dreams that you have. And it's important to, like she said, if you're our ages, if you're 40 and up, 30 and up, it's important to go back to your younger years a little bit and revisit. That's what this show is called, Revisit Your Dreams. when you were 18 years old, when you were 16 years old, what were those things that you wanted to do? What were those things that excited you? What were those things that made you get up and gave you the energy to pursue life every day with like some fervor? Like if you could get back to that
Hmm.
place, you can't go back in time. You can't get those years back, but you can get that feeling back. If you get back to
That's
that, you
right.
can get the feeling back and now start pursuing life as an older adult with that same level of intensity toward making those dreams a reality. Um, at Where will India Monique be in 5 years?
Oh, in 5 years, she is going to be one, living her best life, and she will be doing all of the things that she has set out to do. So, whether that's in modeling, acting, growing her wine business, all of the things that she set out to do, and more, right? Because I'm not limiting myself. Wherever the plan that God has for me, that's the plan I want to be on, not my plan. Because his plan, he has shown me his plan is much
Yeah.
greater. So yeah, so she will definitely be doing the things that will enrich her life and hopefully enrich the lives of some others.
Define, this is a side question. Define age. What's your definition of age?
Energy,
Never heard it like that.
right?
And I love
Because I say that because one, I I know I have seen, I follow on Instagram some bodybuilders that
it.
are 70-year-old women and look absolutely fabulous. Like you would never think that they were 70, right? Age literally is a number, but it's your energy, it's your level. What are you doing to your body to help preserve, and be able to take you where you want to go? That there's a lot of things that go into that. Your peace. I don't let anything or anyone disturb my peace. I've
Mhm.
learned that,
You have to protect
right?
it at
You
all
have to
costs.
protect it at all costs. Oh yeah, if you're coming and disturbing my peace, you can't even be in my
Exactly.
atmosphere. No, you got to go. But what you eat, how you care for yourself. I'm going to do everything that I can to take care of my body, to take care of my well being. I have to take care of me first, because if I'm no good to me, how can I be anything to my children or to my
Hmm.
spouse? I can't be good to others if I'm not good to myself. So age to me is energy. It's what you're coming with, because many times when I go on casting calls and model calls, they don't know how old I am. They have no clue. But I can look around the room and I'm like, I know I'm the oldest person up in here.
And they have no idea. And
They
and
have
there
no
likely
idea.
some, you might know it, but there are likely some people in there that look older than you, even though they're younger.
I ain't gonna say,
I
but
already know.
absolutely.
I already know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, so when I come into the space, um, it's not age that you're gonna think about initially. It's that
Mhm.
energy. Because I bring a certain energy when I walk in the room, and I had to learn how to be comfortable with that, because everybody can't handle that. I am a big personality. I never meet strangers. I'll walk in the room and start talking to everybody. So you either love me or you hate me,
You're gonna have to
but
get
you will
and you're gonna have to
respect
get used
me.
to me right away because I'm showing up.
You're going to have to get used to me right away, because I show
I love
up,
it.
and I show up with big
I
energy.
love it. I love it. I love it. What would you tell someone who believes they're too old to pursue their dreams or that time has passed them by?
Oh, no, no, never. You are never too old. Because what do we say? It's not age, is what you are bringing to it. So people, I've heard that, and maybe once upon a time I thought that, and I'm sure I did at some point. I'm sure I thought, and in fact, when the summer that I really became serious about, okay, well, maybe I should look into modeling, I was stopped so much by photographers and even by random people. do you model? Are you a model? And I'm just like, where is this coming from? I'm like, no, I'm not. And I don't know if you remember this, Johnny, but back in the day, I was a campus model. I used to, Lucky used to take pictures of me all the
I
time when we were in
do
school.
remember.
I was a campus model. I actually tried the model in school. I actually tried to sign up with an agency. No, I did sign up with the agency when we were at Tennessee State. But I didn't like some of the things that they were requiring of me, and one of those things was I was already very petite, and I'm short. I can't change that, right? Which most people think I'm actually tall. I photograph tall, but I'm very short. But back then, I remember I guess I don't know if he was the director of the modeling agency or what. He wanted me to lose like an additional 15 pounds. I was already like 110 or something. I was very small. And I'm like, what? So I started doing it. And then, you know what? I said, I don't think I want to do this. So it discouraged me for sure. But back then, that's when it was a lot of, you had to be
Yeah.
extremely
Yeah.
thin, and they wanted you to be a certain height, but I wanted to be a print model. So but being able to come back after all those years, because I've done little sprinkles of things throughout the years, but being able to come back and say, well, maybe there's something to this. People keep approaching me, and I thought, am I crazy? What is this? But I was working my corporate job, so I'm like, well, I'll do it on the side. Maybe let me go do a test shot. And I have a test shot in late August, and I got laid off in September. God's
See,
funny, isn't he?
funny with that timing, and
He is
right
so
on
funny
time. Right on time
and right on
is
time.
you know
That's it.
you the theme that I hear is faith and obedience and preparation, faith, obedience, and preparation. You took some time to take some shots at a time you were still working, you were still employed, and then months later or a month later, you're now unemployed, not really realizing that those shots that you took, that step that you took to say, I'm going to do something a little bit in the vein of what I want to do, was
Yeah.
preparation, and I think that this is just me, my interpretation. If you believe in faith and you believe in God's movement, I believe that it took you to take those pictures for God to say, okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and move. She's ready. She just needed to take the
Yeah.
step. She just needed to get that mindset that there's something else I can do beyond what I'm currently doing. And God saw you take the step, and then He opened the door. And I think that that's a powerful statement. I think many people fail to recognize that point in their life where um, God is preparing them, providing an opportunity for them to pursue their dream despite what
Hmm.
their current circumstances are. So this is very powerful,
That's
India.
right.
Very powerful. Um, if you could say a phrase or a quote, if you could offer a phrase or a quote or a mantra or a scripture to anyone who or everyone, if you knew that they would take heed to it, if you knew that everyone you came across would take heed to this word, what word would you deliver to them?
Oh gosh, and you know what? I have something. It's in my phone. I can't even think of what it is right now. Um, I have a lot of in my closet. I have a area where I just have sticky notes. I'm the sticky note queen. I write all types of affirmations, everything on
Mhm.
sticky notes, and I do it to motivate myself sometimes, especially if my spirit is down. Then I have to go in there and read those things. And I can't think of one immediately, but I would say that if I could say anything remotely tied to my journey in the last 16 months, I would say that believe in yourself and get the stuff out of your head So let me put it in better terms. Believe in what God put in you, because there are going to be so many distractions that'll try to come and get in your way. I have some down times, and when I have them, I might not even get on social media for a day or two. I just have to get away and just mentally, okay, let me get myself together. But believe in what God put in you, because everything He has given you is in His plan for you. And you have to work it. So, what they say, faith without works is dead. So, you can have all the faith in the world, but you can't move the mountain if you don't put in the work to move the mountain. So when I got laid off, yeah, I had taken that first photo shoot, right? I had done those first set of shots. But while I was waiting for a job, and I wasn't just sitting here waiting, I was looking on LinkedIn every day for 8, 9 hours a day. But I also enrolled myself in acting classes. Let me roll in this class and see what this class is about. Enrolled in that class that December. We started in January, and I was in class from January to June. I've taken classes and feeding off of it and getting better and better. I'm like, okay, I love this, and it opened my eyes, right? But I was still looking for that corporate job, thinking that that's what I needed to do, right? But then God was opening up little gigs. I would get a gig here, and I would go to an audition here. Don't be afraid to do it. Just do it. Just do it. I know that's Nike, but just do it. Just you got to take the first step, like you just mentioned. I took that first step, and God was like, okay, I was just waiting on her
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah, you have to. Go
So
ahead. I'm sorry.
believe. No, I was just going to reiterate, just believe in what God has already put in you.
Absolutely. We are born as human beings with some innate skills and abilities, and then most of us are blessed with some special gift or ability somewhere. All different. Everybody has one thing that they're can if all of us don't recognize what that thing is. Sometimes we have to soul search and we have to do some, inner searching and brainstorming and writing, get, like you said, get stuff out of our head, put stuff on paper to kind of maybe guide and figure out what those things are. But once you do and you
Hmm.
step out in the faith that I was blessed with these gifts and skills for a reason, I'm going to use them to the best of
Yes.
my ability. That's very powerful. But you have to start. You have to start. Even me, like this podcast right now, um, it's called Revisit Your Dreams because about 15 years ago, when I took I considered a bold step for me, at little over almost 40 years old, releasing a hip hop album that I fully produced on myself, by myself, wrote myself, recorded myself in my own home studio. And I got
Hmm.
kids that's in college. I got kids in high school. I got a baby on the way. I'm working in the corporate world, and a lot of the stuff I'm saying on this album is not necessarily in line with that type of professional image. Um, but
Right.
I started I took the step and I did it. And when I did that,
Right.
I started using the hashtag revisit your dreams because it was a reminder to me to
Mm.
revisit the things that, like, when I was in high school and college, I wanted to rap. I wanted to put music out. So
Yep.
I was revisiting a dream at age 40. And the boldness in doing that is what led me to doing this right now, because I decided I'm gonna produce this album. It led to me using this hashtag revisit your dreams. And now 15 years later, I have a podcast called Revisit Your Dreams, which is Revisit Your Dreams was what I was using to inspire myself, but now I'm using it to help inspire and motivate others. And this show is, I think, something that God put in me to help bless you, not you, India, necessarily, but you
Hmm.
too,
Right.
and myself.
Right.
So boldness, taking the steps, starting, and not allowing anything to get into your path that um, not allowing any circumstance or excuse to stop you from pursuing that dream is very important. India, you have been great. This time has been a lot of fun. For me, um, I've
Yes, it
learned a lot
has.
about you that I even, with the relationship that we have, I learned more about you that I didn't know in the past. So it was great to talk to you a little bit. Before we go, I have a special bonus content question that I like to ask everybody,
Uh-huh.
and it's just to kind of get an idea of where your inspiration comes from. So I call this bonus segment "What's Your Rush?" as in Mount Rushmore. And as you know, Mount Rushmore has like four
Okay.
iconic, images or figures on it. And so um, I just want to know what's your Mount Rushmore, the four most inspirational people to you in your life's journey or your career journey.
The first person is she was my great aunt. Her name was Belinda. She was a mentor and a role model for me. I always looked up to her. She died at a very young age. She was in her 30s actually, but she was a Air Force captain. She graduated from a HBCU. She went to Alabama A&M, and then she also went to UC Berkeley. And I remember when I was a student at Tennessee State, and for spring break, I went to San Francisco, and I went to Berkeley's campus, and I walked the campus. I'm like, this is the yard where my aunt went. So she was definitely and I bring her up because she also lived abroad, and I always wanted to live overseas. So she was my first role model. I wanted to be just like her. Second, I would say, honestly, I mentioned her earlier, and it was my third grade teacher. I always reflect back on Miss Thurman. For whatever reason, I have kept this woman in my memory for all these years, but she introduced me to poetry. I loved to read. I still love to read now, but I don't do as much as I used to. But she opened up a world to me in poetry. And I don't know if you know this, but right out of college, rather, I was a freelance writer for about 5 or 6 years. So I always loved to write and have a play on words, and she introduced that to me. So I would say Miss Thurman would be my second one. Third, if I have to think about some of the entertainers that I have loved throughout the years. One person that I have always admired from the very beginning is Oprah Winfrey, and it was because of her background. And then we were the same major at Tennessee State. So I was a speech communications major at TSU, and I loved the progression of her career, and I loved how she was unapologetic about who she was as a black woman in that space, and it was not any black women or really black men in that space when she started out as big as she got, right, with having her own talk show, and and the things that she did in that space. She created a lot of pathways for people to come into that space. So Oprah has always been that person for me as well. And I know I'm missing somebody, but there's someone else that I thought of and I can't think, but I know that there is someone throughout my career that I should probably call on. And I might say, and she'll be very surprised that I said this, but Jackie Butterworth, and I will let her hear this part too. But Jackie Butterworth, she was a manager of mine at Chevron, but she was the first person that really believed in me as a people manager. She was my manager, but I was a people manager of a team. And it was early on in my career there. And she really encouraged me. So it would be Jackie Butterworth slash Wendy Brombach. Let me put that out there. The two of them, because they worked hand in hand, and they were very instrumental with me encouraging me to apply and me getting my international assignment where I lived and worked in Eastern Europe for a few years. And so they were women supporting women. And I really appreciated that about them. And they shared a lot with me because they were in a male dominant space, right? They were both Caucasian women. Well, one was from Australia, but they believed in me and made sure that I knew that. And I appreciated both of them for what they did for me and how they supported me throughout my
Yeah.
time when I
Yeah.
was there.
That's awesome. You have a very solid Mount Rushmore list. I asked this question to every guest, and the answers vary. There's usually someone that either they've worked with, or a family member, or someone they've looked up to in their industry, in the past. So I appreciate that response. India, you have. I'm going to give you the platform right now. You've been a great guest, a great, very special guest. But I'm going to give you the platform right now. This is an opportunity for you to share with the audience anything that you got going on, anything that you'd like to let us know what's coming up, where they can find you on social media, how they can connect with you if you choose to do so. The platform is yours.
Yeah, so they can connect with me on social media. On Facebook, I'm listed as India Morgan. On Instagram, India_Monique. And then I do have a second Instagram page, and it is Indie Fly Girl, and it's spelled with Y's instead of I's. But they can definitely connect with me there. I'm also India Monique on TikTok. And I typically try to stay on top of my social media and posting frequently. But what's up next for me? I have a couple of irons in the fire, if you will. I've auditioned for a few things, so we'll see what comes of those projects. I have some photo shoots lined up where we are continuing to stretch and grow when it comes to our art and how we express ourselves, and really just getting myself out there in the industry, and wanting to network more and kind of learn and understand those dynamics. So I'm excited about that, and I have some training that I'm doing that's really going to help my career in the things that I'm trying to do in commercial acting. So I'm very excited about those things that are coming.
We are equally excited. When I say we, I mean your family at Tennessee State University that follow you, that have been pushing for you and kind of being inspired by
Yay!
your career. We're equally excited for your venture and your journey and what's coming up. Look forward to seeing the images and the videos and the commentary that comes from your journey. Continue to inspire people. Continue to boldly represent. Continue to show up as fly and as elegant as you have always done. Your journey is very powerful, and we thank you for being here with us today, Miss India Monique.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I am very excited for you and for your platform. And I appreciate you allowing me to be on your
Thank you so
podcast.
much. This has been the Ride, the Revisit Your Dreams podcast. Again, make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Make sure that you like this episode. I'm certain that you know someone who can benefit from something that Miss India Monique has shared today. So please share this video with someone, as it helps us to spread the news and spread the message, because our whole goal here is to motivate, to inspire, and encourage others, through our journey. So thank you again for being here. I want to remind you one last thing, that the Revisit Your Dreams podcast will air each Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the Revisit Your Dreams channel on youtube.com. Go ahead and subscribe so you can be alerted of the new episodes that we got coming out each Thursday. Thank you again for being here, Miss India Monique. Thank you very much. One love. I'm your boy, Still Chill Leroy. We out.